What's important to you? My mission is to ask as many people as possible this question, because I believe once you know what's important, you can design and build a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. My name is James Dean. I'm a life coach, and I hope this podcast inspires you to uncover what's important to you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at James Dean Coaching, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also learn how I can help you understand what's important at jamesdeancoaching.com. Today's guest followed his passion when he decided to ditch the 9-to-5 Monday to Friday job as a computer programmer and dive into the world of sport and triathlon by becoming a coach and setting up Primed Coaching. Embracing the triathlon life, sport has now become a huge part of his everyday. He has raced 9 Ironman events since first dipping his toes into the long-distance triathlon in Mallorca in 2014. Catching the Ironman bug, he has gone on to race in Lanzarote, Wales, Barcelona, and raced at the World Championship event in Kona, Hawaii in 2017, finishing the 140.6-mile triathlon in less than 10 hours. He's in Kona now as this episode goes live to take part in the Ironman 2022 World Championship event. He has coached multiple Ironman finishers, World Championship qualifiers, race winners, ITU national representatives, and some of the most talented age group triathletes across the country. He is dad to 4 children and juggles daily life with his wife Roisin in Newry, where he is a coach and member of Newry Triathlon Club. Today, we find out what's important to Oliver Harkin. Hi Oliver, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on board, James. Great to be here.
Brilliant stuff. So we're going to get straight into it with the first question, which is, Oliver, what's important to you?
James, the most important thing to me is my family. I'm very fortunate to have 4 wonderful kids and a wife, and the kids are just growing up so fast that being able to spend time with them and is the most important thing to me currently, and for the foreseeable future, I'm sure as well. So my job is fortunate that allows me a lot of flexibility and allows me to spend a lot of quality time with them.
And when do you think, in a sense of that being an important thing for you, or the most important thing for you, is it did you say when you had your own family, or is it because when you were growing up, is it something that was always there, or is it something that you sort of grown into?
Well, when I was growing up, our traditional Irish household at that stage was my father would go out to work and my mother would stay at home, and so there's a lot of quality time with them. Obviously, at that stage, I had 2 older brothers, but they were a bit older than me, so I didn't get to spend too much time getting beaten up by them. So when I had my own family, I had a sort of a traditional computer programmer job in my early 20s, straight out of college, that I soon realized wasn't for me. And by the stage my sort of mid-20s came around, I'd made the jump into triathlon coaching, and that has opened up a whole world of flexibility and being able to spend time with my kids. So it's been a happier job and a happier life, family life. So it's been a double win.
Yeah, for sure. And that's interesting, because obviously I would know you from the world of triathlon. So obviously that's how I would know of you and seen you at races and obviously online when you're self-racing and then doing your coaching. So to go from that sort of job that you said you had, was it in computer programming? Is that what you said it was?
Yeah, computer programming. Sat at a little workstation from 9 to 5 with an hour's commute. Usually added on to the end of either side of that. Yeah, it was not pleasant. It wasn't inspiring, shall we say.
Yeah.
And after a few years of that, I realized there had to be better things for me than that. And thankfully, my wife gave me a push. She was very
Yeah.
supportive and very encouraging. I started getting into the coaching side of things, swim coaching, triathlon coaching, and I was loving it. I was
Mm.
absolutely loving it, James. And I knew I just had to make a go of this because this is what I wanted my life to be.
Mm.
But it's difficult. It's scary because you
Yeah.
have mortgages or a mortgage. You had a young kid, young child, and you're giving up a lot to follow a bit of a dream.
Mm.
And thankfully, it worked out wonderfully well thanks to my my wife, Roisin.
Yeah. Yeah.
She gets all the credit.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a, it's a, I think like a lot of people in that regard who, including myself in this, have gone for a quote unquote proper job, because you think you have a desk and a computer or whatever, and you're in an office. It's how the perception of it. But to consider that, the fact that you decided to leave that, you said you're in your 20s still.
Yeah,
That's
mid twenties.
probably, yeah, so that's probably still relatively quite young in a sense of what to have that realization, to actually, what this is, I just can't do this. I have to follow what something important. It'd be quite sort of, it's for me, it's sort of reflecting back, I was probably, it was a good 10, 13 years later, as such, I'd older into my 30s before I could have
Yeah.
really stepped away. So what at that age do you think when you kind of like, well, actually, you know what, I have to just change?
It got to the stage, James, where the best part of my day was the lunchtime run with the guys from work, and I was designing what type of session we're going to do today, where we're going to go, and that was the highlight of my day. And that penny dropped, and I knew that things had to change. But it's very difficult. Like for my like parents, you had one job. Back that generation, you got into a job, civil servant. You never left. You stayed there, and you might have made your way up the ranks or whatever. But now, my children are teenagers, and the school are saying to them, you're probably going to have not even 3 or 4 jobs. You're going to have 3 or 4 careers. So it's a lot more, adventurous. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's a lot more go and try and make a living out of things you enjoy rather than things you just might have thought you're good at the age of 17. Like you went to the education system in the Republic as well. My um, careers advice lasted 3 minutes. I walked into the room, and the teacher had said to me, "What are you good at?" I said, I'm all right at maths." He says, "Well, do you want to be a maths teacher, or do you want to go down this newfangled world of computer programming?" And so you just follow along blindly, and then after a little while in there, you realize it has to be more.
Yeah, completely. And I think, yeah, definitely I would have, I think sharing back the concept of having a sort of a careers advisor or careers officer back in sort of school, and thinking back on it now, just sort of the almost pointless types of questionnaires, which did actually, if I remember rightly, just directed me to some sort of administration role. That was essential, which is ironically, which I ended up doing, which I always kind of thought I never wanted to do. And I didn't want to do it. But you kind of sometimes, as you say, you find yourself in something, and you can get so caught up in the, which, in the sort of where I was thinking so interesting in the sense of what you're saying, in that in your 20s deciding to walk away from that potentially secure job, because that's where I was in my 20s as well. But I was trying to accumulate, I suppose is that word I'd say, in my 20s. It was get a house, get married,
Hmm.
you know, enjoy going on holidays, those sorts of things, very much. And that sort of regularity of that paycheck became quite normalized. But I can totally then, when I start to see the change in my career, in a sense of wanting to then exit it, with that point that you just said there, was like, well, the best part of my day was the run at lunchtime.
Yeah.
that resonates. And there's something I used to say, because when I was very much in the sense of the thing we have in common in sense of triathlon, and when I'd be training for races when I was still working with, like, work is just becoming an inconvenience between training sessions.
Yeah, definitely.
You
But
know, and
people have asked me before, I've been a triathlon coach for coming up nearly 20 years at this stage, and they've sort of asked me, what would you want to go back at age 17 and go down the route of becoming a coach or sports physiologist or something out there? Maybe the sports physiology side of things would appeal to me in hindsight, but at the age of 17, 18, you weren't able to listen to people. You're not able to listen to what people are trying to tell you. You know too much as a 17-year-old, and it's all about me. But then to suddenly realize, oh, I've got this set of skills that can help people achieve their goals. Like that takes a while to learn that you've got that in you.
Absolutely. And what the one thing is, like, that interests me, because obviously going back, I say you say you've been doing triathlon for coaching for 20 years. Was it something that, in sense of, was that the sport that you were always drawn to, or was it something that you, one of many, or where did your sort of initial sort of love of triathlon come from?
It was strangely enough, it was a drunken bet, James.
The best things happen.
It was a drunken bet between me and two friends. We were out on a night out, and my two friends were having the same sort of, there has to be more to it than this,
Yeah.
and let's do something crazy. And we talked about marathons and things like that there, and we thought, let's do something that, a bit off the radar. And I said, I've heard about this triathlon stuff that's taken Ireland by storm back then, and I was the only one that sort of followed through. The other two guys did eventually, but I was the first one to jump, and it was just a challenge. Like, I grew up in rural Donegal, and it was soccer or Gaelic football were the choices. There was nothing. There's no
Yep.
real individual sports to choose from, and I couldn't kick snow off a rope. I was on the team, but I was absolutely rubbish. Like, and now, to hit your 20s and it being, it's not a team sport. It's what you put in is what you get out,
Yeah.
and it's a bit more like real life. It's, if you work hard at it, then with a bit of guidance you'll get better at it. And like, that's one of the things I loved about it. I got into the sport. I was crap. I was at the back. This is back in the day where they used to print out the results on like a spreadsheet and pin them up on the wall. And there might be 6 pages, 30 people on each page. And I'd go automatically just start at the back page
Yeah.
and see where it was. And then as the years went by, I would move up a page or a couple of pages. And I was so delighted to get onto the first page. I was like, wow, I've made it. And then you realize when you look up at the results, there's like, I was maybe 30 at that stage. I thought I was fit. I'm a triathlete. And then I look up at people who are beating me, and they're like 20, 30 years older than me, and they're absolutely hammering me. And how are they doing that? And then that was an inspiration to me that I would love to be that person for the next generation coming through. So that's what, I'm 40, coming 47, and towards the pointier end. I don't win races, but I'm towards the pointier end. And I love when the 20 and the 30-year-olds come up to me and go, "What age are you?" I go, "You don't want to know."
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's brilliant in the sense of that story, because it reminded me, like, when I got into it in 20, it would have been 2015. So it was the first time when they brought the 70 to Dublin. The Ironman 70 came to Dublin. So that's when I first got into triathlon. But I started off with it was a duathlon. I think it was in Punchestown, if I remember. They did it on the race course.
Racecourse, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just starting out, and I was just giving it a go. We'd obviously done and been out on the bike and training, and I think it was maybe like a 20K bike or something like that. And I'm an okay runner, so I did the run, got on the bike, and I was out. And then so I was like, it was almost just the fact that I was in a race was just an achievement in itself. I was so delighted with myself. And that same sense, so I'm just pedaling along the road, I think the roads were even open, if I remember. And then just, it seemed to be so effortless. But this guy just came past me, and I swear he was probably near 80. And he just, and I was just looking at him thinking, and I was there trying my hardest. And he just had these just calves on him. And I just remember going, how? And it was a great leveler for me in a sense of like, you can do this for a long time. And then, but you can just, that whole thing of the perception of what someone looks like to be fit, or the perception of what a triathlete or a duathlete looks like, I was like, well, that just shattered everything. So it actually, it kind of humbled me, but it was like, well, this is amazing. Anyone can have a go at this.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
age, every size.
Speaking of looks, there was I live in a wonderful part of Ireland with the Mourne Mountains, and they do a mountain running series here called the Hill Dales. And after a few years of triathlon training, I used the Hill Dale series as winter fun. And I turned up and I was fit. I was triathlon fit, and just about to start the race, and there was a little old man beside me, grizzly beard, and his glasses were tied on with shoestring. And I looked, I'm 6'2", and I looked down at him and went, "Hey, how you get on? I'll see you later on." And I took off like a rocket. And every time we came to a hill, your man passed me. He went by me. He went, "How you get on now?" How you doing that? And it's just like unbelievable how fit they are,
Yeah.
especially the mountain runners. But you can't, and that's why I love about triathlon. People get a bit obsessed about the bikes in triathlon and how much they cost. And I try to get all the athletes to focus on and developing their own internal engine, how powerful their legs are, because it just feels great passing people on really expensive bikes and going,
Yeah.
that's a nice bike. See there, it
Yeah.
feels great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was chatting to someone else about this yesterday when I was talking about the concept of imposter syndrome, and that and I think I was having that when I first got into sort of triathlon, and especially in my first Ironman events, when I was turning up with a road bike. That was, to me, that was an expensive bike. This investment in this road bike that I bought, and you do have that sort of looking around and seeing on everybody else's kit, and their kit's more expensive than my bike, and all this sort of stuff. What they're running in their shoes, and and you're like, okay, well, we'll carry on. And the thing is, they say that's stuff, and you say one is you as an internal, and what you can actually do, as you say, when you're passing these people potentially. But it's also that thing of the level of like when amount of races I've gone to or events I've gone to, and you turn the corner, you're not even a kilometer away from the bike start, and that 3 gram bike has a puncture.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? It's like in the end, it's a tool, but as you say, the athlete or the person is what's going to get round the course.
Yeah, it's a symptom of they want the speed quickly,
Yeah.
and it's much easier to put down your credit card rather than saying, okay, it's going to take me 6 months to get fit. They'd rather spend the extra money on getting a bike that's slightly lighter, slightly aero. But some of the athletes are sat on these bikes, and there's nothing wrong with the bikes. The bikes are good. A 2 gram bike is good. A 4 gram bike isn't twice as good. There's no secret engine in it. It's
Yeah.
slightly lighter, but the person on the bike may have real flexibility issues and may not be able to get down in an aerodynamic position. They may be carrying excess body fat percentage, which is going to make them slower going up the hill. So saving a few quid on the bike and maybe getting a strength and conditioning coach on board or a nutritionist
Yeah.
on board would make them a healthier, happier, and better performing human being.
Yeah, for sure. Now going back to we went off side there, but going back to the whole thing. So you did the first triathlon as the drunken bet, and sort of got into it from there. So was it initially just you as something to do in a sense of for being a personal sort of almost hobby initially? Is that how it came about?
It still is. It still is
Right.
a for me as an athlete. It's
Yeah.
still a hobby. Um, a lot of people would know that I do the longer stuff now, the what they call Ironman branded, the long distance triathlons, which maybe I'll explain to your listeners the distances involved. They're just nuts. Basically, it's a long swim and almost a 4 kilometer swim and 180 kilometers on a bike, 112 miles, and then it finishes with a marathon. Like even to just say that, and the event finishes with a marathon, it's just a bit crazy. But that I love going away foreign, France, Lanzarote, Hawaii, wherever, and experiencing new parts of the world through the long distance stuff. But every single summer, and I strongly encourage my athletes to do this, I do at least 2 sprint distance races, 2 Olympic distance races, and 2 70.3 middle distance races locally in Ireland, all 4 corners, because there's so much fun to be had on your own doorstep as well. Some people focus too much on the long distance stuff, and they don't race because they want to keep training, and they miss the fun. End of the day, once you're past 30, 25, 30, you're not going to the Olympics. It's not paying for the mortgage or the roof over your head. It's to be a healthy hobby to make you happy.
Yeah.
Don't be taking it too serious.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I echo that, because it's the two things. I think when you tell people the distances and stuff, they look at you with 10 heads, and then the inevitable sometimes question is like, oh, so are you going to win? And it's like, no, there's no danger of me. There's no danger of me being anywhere near the front. I'm like, survive and finish is the goal. But as you say though, I think that's a really important point to say. Is like, it is, to do it, especially when you're doing it as an adult, as you're doing it as a hobby, it's supposed to be fun. And going back to that point of like, well, actually, it's something to keep you fit and healthy, but do it because it's fun. So when you come to then coaching people, how do you, as a coach, then try and find that balance of, people want to obviously achieve their goals, they might want to just finish the race, might want a certain time, but how do you then also try and keep that balance of that they're actually enjoying it?
Well, when they come to me, I'm a fairly frank talker, and I call a spade, and I tell them, yes, you can achieve this in 6 months. I've had a couple of athletes over the years, but not very many, who want to get their Ironman medal, and it's one and done, and they're away.
Yeah.
I don't really like that approach. I prefer it's a lifestyle choice. This is me, one way or another, triathlons or venture races, or whatever they get into, CrossFit, whatever it is, as long as it's making them healthier and happier. So the triathletes have a nasty habit of overestimating how quickly they can get fit, and underestimating how fit they can become in the long term. So it's all about, I want to be fit tomorrow, and it doesn't work like that. They'll just burn out or injure themselves. But if you could show them how much they can improve in 4 years' time, they might go, wow, I'm a crystal ball. 4 years' time, you could be that type of athlete. And they'll go, wow, that's amazing. But as soon as you mention 4 years to someone, they're like, nah, I want the 6-month version of that, please.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, because I suppose when I initially sort of in sort of around 30s got back into, say, fitness, I would have been similar to what you said initially, sort of through schools and colleges. I would have been team sports and stuff myself. Every team sport I would have done it, got the team, not the greatest player, but I would have made the team. And then after university, where I played basketball, or more tried to help sort of coach the team or try and manage the team, after 2-3 years of trying to manage or help coach a group of college lads in the worst team you could be, but all thought they were the Harlem Globetrotters or something, it was just like, I am done with groups of people. I was just like, nope, can't do teams anymore. So and I didn't do anything to my 30s. But I sort of started off with running and into 10Ks, 5Ks, that sort of stuff, up to marathons. And I hadn't even heard of Ironman at that stage. And it was only when he was like, as I said, that time it was coming to Dublin, 2015. Oh, I started getting involved in it. So, but it took me when I actually started, you could say, getting fit, as it would be, lose weight and things that I wanted to do, to when I completed my first Ironman was actually 5 years. And
Yeah.
2012 is kind of when I started, and it was the sort of 2017 Barcelona, the September 2017. So if sometimes it's going in with that naivety is almost a better thing, because I just went into it to get fit and have some fun. I wanted finding something that I wanted to do that was fun
Yeah.
and see what happened.
See, I really recommend the slower approach to, because it's so much fun, and to begin from starting off with the shorter distances for a couple of years and building yourself up gradually. But the thing is, the marketing monster that is Ironman it does
Yeah.
a wonderful job of inspiring people to go, oh, I'll do that, which they jump in. And I know people that their very first triathlon is an Ironman distance event, and I'm like, holy, fair play to you, well done, you got it. But wow, that's a huge challenge you've taken on. You have to remember, most of the people that we're dealing with, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, family, the work, and it takes time to sort out your routine to allow you to train to that level. And
Mhm.
like, the worry for me is when people do too much too soon, is it affects their balance in their life, because you're dealing with work stress, you're dealing with family stress, and now you're adding in a big load of training stress onto the body as well. And if you haven't got room to recover, you just burn out. So there's a lot of, you probably might know some athletes yourself who burn bright, and then they burn out, and then they come back, a year later and burn bright again, and then they
Mm,
burn out again. And
mm.
it's more of a slow burn approach works better in the long run for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because it's interesting as well because in a sense of those, when I say with myself, and this is a perfect example, I think, in a sense of those years when I was going sort of very much from sort of around 2017, definitely from 2013 all the way up to 2019, where I was doing, whether it be starting off with the sort of shorter distances, 5, 10Ks running up to marathons, and then into moving into triathlon, and then eventually with Ironman. It coincided when I finished. I kind of did two races in 2019. I did the full Ironman Cork, and then I did one in Augusta, Georgia, the half distance. And it was at that point that myself and my wife, who kind of would be compete as well or participate, we were like, we need to sort of just take a step back. And then,
Mm.
sure enough, then COVID hit, and you kind of were forced into taking a step back anyway. Every races were done. We were still training, but it's interesting in a sense of I needed that break because I had done so much.
Yeah.
And it's probably only and then the last sort of, then after moving house and things like that, priorities change. And it's only now in a sense of when I, like in the last sort of 6 months or so, when I've kind of got back into just training. But it's interesting in a sense I've gone and then like, I don't train now with a watch. I don't worry about
Mm.
time or splits or, it's just like just for the sake of doing what I did initially, which was just to get involved, to have some fun, get some headspace. Um, if I eventually get back to racing again, great. But
Yeah.
it's nice to have that reset of the reason of why you actually did it in the first place.
Well, my favorite run that I do every single week, at least once, is into my there's a woods, small forest near where I live, a couple of kilometers away. I run down the road for a couple of kilometers and into the woods, and I run around my happy place for 45 minutes to an hour. And because you're running on like forest trails and single track, it's up and down, left and right, uneven surfaces. You're not looking at your heart rate. You're not looking at the pace because it doesn't matter in there. And the season changes. The bluebells come out. The leaves fall down. The leaves grow. It's just beautiful, and being out there in Mother Nature, and you come back and you always feel so good about that run. Whereas if you go to the running track, people get upset about their splits being 5 seconds slower than they're expecting. Like, it's all good. Just getting out. Just don't agonize over a few seconds here or there. Just be glad to get able to get out the door.
Yeah. And I'm interested in a sense of now, and in a sense, obviously, you've been doing triathlon yourself for over 20 years and coaching. Because obviously, you, in a sense of for yourself personally, do you think you're saying that your sort of own specific motivation has changed over the years in terms of for yourself personally?
It has. When I started doing the longer course stuff in Ironman stuff in 2014, and I thought I was just the reason I did it was I had been coaching Ironman athletes for several years before that, and you can train people for the distance and the duration, and you can sort out their nutrition. And the heat is a different. It's quite difficult to train people in heat in
Mm.
Ireland, as you know.
Yeah.
But the main challenge that I was a bit in the dark as a coach was the mental side. People were coming back saying, "Oh, it's really mentally tough. It's really mentally tough." And I went, "Well, there's only one way of seeing what they're talking about." And I signed myself up to do Ironman Mallorca in September 2014, and it was very mentally tough. It
Yeah.
was, and so I did okay, but come like the third lap of the run, so it was 4 laps, for pretty much 10Ks. I was a babbling mess. I was like, "Oh, why am I here? I should be at home looking after my children." All the little guilt things were on your shoulder. The little devil was there. Ah, just stop. Have a wee sit down. Look, there's a guy over there sitting down having a wee cry. Go join him. Have a wee cry. Have a wee cry. Oh, mess of a man. Oh, so it was, James. But you learn from these things, and
Yeah.
going through tough times helps the next one. Helps the next one, and
Yeah.
then the qualifying, so you have to get to a certain standard, certain level to qualify for the Ironman World Championships, which are in Kona every year. And that sort of I just wanted to go to Hawaii, to be honest. Like, who the hell
Who
wouldn't
wouldn't? Yeah.
who wouldn't like? So I fortunately qualified to race it in 2017, and now I'm going back again in a few weeks time to race it. So that it's just so at the time back in the early years, 2014, 2017 onwards, was about qualifying and getting good enough to qualify. But since I've been there, I really appreciate the post race, going to local races and meeting people, especially with COVID, and we missed out in 2 years, and you really reflect on, I miss the crack, I miss the fun over a cup of tea and a sandwich. How'd your race go? Oh, this happened, that happened. That means more to me than the actual race. The actual race is an inconvenience to get to the bit of crack at the end, and
Yeah.
meeting people before, and how you getting on, going up and down the country and seeing people. And yeah, so now the emphasis is, yeah, I do okay and do as well as I can in the race, but I love the post race banter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, uh, and it's definitely in the same way that I share that in the sense of all the things that I've sort of gained from participating in endurance sports, whether it be marathon running or even the sort of going to your local park run or going into triathlon. The people that I've met and the experiences I've had with those people is amazing. Where there's people that I've met from or literally all over the world that you still are friends with, but you know them purely from a race or purely from triathlon or whatever, and you say, and that sort of sharing war stories and just having the crack with them or messing and chatting, and then the thing of like when I've gone to America and people have helped me out and stuff. When I turn up at a race and I don't know what I'm doing, and they take me here, there, and everywhere. And when they come over to Ireland, you're doing the, you're looking after each other. To that community that it brings.
Yeah,
And even in the sense of like, there's say that what I appreciate, I think, what I get from participating in those events as well is like you can have obviously like there's clubs, there's triathlon clubs, there's running clubs, and there's people who train on their own. There's people who just do it individually. But on the day, you literally it's one big, massive triathlon club for that one day.
yeah,
And you get to experience everything from everyone. And I have not had anything but positive experiences and support from being in that community?
I think that's one of the best. I just discovered this early. One of the best things about triathlon is everyone's got a weakness.
Mm,
Um, After a few years, I was working with the Triathlon Ireland junior squad, and obviously they'd bump into the sort of seniors who are trying to get to the Olympics. And these are like, world class, exceptional athletes, but they were very humble because each one of them knew that they had something they had to work really really hard at. One of them was a really good biker, but his swim let him down. The other was a really good swimmer, but his run was let him down compared to the best in the world. So it was just like there's no real egos in triathlon
yeah.
because everyone sucks a little bit at one
Yeah.
discipline or the other, and it
Yeah.
keeps everyone humble, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely. And the other thing I often reflect on as well is when it comes to, especially I think any distance of triathlon. I think even from the sort of real short course ones to the Ironmans, the distances. Say like for example, if we go stick with the Ironman, that long distance sort of event where you say it's like 140 odd miles for a continuous event, and you got the pros right at the top who like the men are doing it in maybe 8 hours and the women are doing it in 9 hours, depending on the race, something like that. And as the last athlete that can cross the line is, you've got 17 hours to do it. So almost double the distance. But the way I see it is that person who did it in the sort of just on the brink of 17 hours, it took everything out of them to get that. But the same way the pro at the front, they put everything in to get that time that they did. So it's in the end, the effort is the same. It's just the distance, the time is different.
Yeah,
Like, so the leveler is that you're doing everything you can. It's your best. So,
yeah.
and I think that respect is across the board, that everyone knows that's what you could give on the day.
Well, at the end of the Ironman events, there's what they call heroes hour. So the last hour, some of the athletes would have gone home and got changed and a shower or whatever and come back. And the
Mm,
pros come back, especially the winner, the male and female winner come back. And so they're handing out medals to the people who are in the final hour. But the people who are crossing the line with, 5-10 minutes to go, they get a bigger cheer than anyone else on the
yeah,
whole day because everyone knows they've suffered for nearly 17 hours. Yes, the pros and other people have suffered for 8, 9, 10. This is 17
yeah,
hours. They've been
yeah,
outgoing and pushing their body and pushing their mental limits and physical limits for that length of time. So they get huge, huge cheers.
yeah, absolutely. Um, One thing I like to ask people, and I'll see if this because it's interesting from a sporting sort of background, is whether you use it or not. I'm one for those of quotes and phrases and things like that. I tend to use them quite a bit in a sense of generally, and then just especially when I'm training. Are there any particular quotes or phrases that you would use or mean anything to you?
I know it's a bit cheesy, and a bit cheesy, but the one about don't count the days, make the days count.
Yeah,
It's sort of resonates with me, especially from like my previous work, where you're stuck in a rut, and the weeks and the days and the weeks just pass you by, and there's nothing special about them, and like you could easily see how weeks become years, become decades, and it's gone. Like you've got one go of it. As far as we know, we've got one go at it,
yeah,
and that doesn't mean like just burn up the credit card and do everything. But yeah, you have to do things you enjoy with people that you love, and I think if you keep
yeah,
it like that, then you know there was I can't remember who it was. There was like a sort of business coach was saying like people come young people come out of university now and they go into a job that they may or may not like, and they're earning a wage, but it doesn't take very much to keep them in that job away from what they really would like to do. Like
yeah,
just random, someone's earning 20, 30, 40,000 euros, whatever. It's going to keep them there, but not really happy.
Yeah.
but they just get settled, and
Yeah.
it's like I love hearing people like Joanne Murphy there, who's the voice of Ironman, who like had a job and then changed job, and yourself who had a job
Mm.
and took a chance and changed jobs. It's very inspiring to hear stories like that, and people to follow their hearts a bit. Give it a go. Give it a go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's definitely a common theme of people that I've spoken to and other people I've had on the podcast as well, in the sense of, and I think in some ways, ironically, maybe the whole thing of going through the pandemic and COVID has given a lot of people maybe the opportunity to take a moment and stop and breathe and think. And because of like being just completely jolted out of that routine of just going and going and going and going, I think there's a lot more people who are going to go, well, actually, the next 20 years will go by real quick. And
Mm-hmm.
do I still want to be doing this? And, and could I still have the life or some of the life that I want, but could I actually achieve that lifestyle from doing something you say that I really want to do, or more that's more important or means so much more to me?
Yeah. Time is the most precious resource that people are lacking. You can earn as much as you want, but if you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week for it, like you've no time to
Yeah.
enjoy it. So it's easy to say, like, but sometimes you know a bit less on one side, so you have a bit more on the other side to enjoy your life.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is just, it reflects me back in a sense of, to one of the first sort of people I spoke to, and I think it's the third episode in this series of podcasts, there's another triathlete I was talking to who I met in the States. He's a guy called Steven Gonzalez. He's in Florida, and he was telling the story to me in a sense. So I'd met him in 2016, I think he was in Florida, and I met him again in 2019 in a race I was doing. And really, really nice guy. But he worked for the Disneyland Corporation, and he'd been there for nearly 20 years. And again, he was obviously very, senior in that organization, and obviously had enjoyed it for the time he was there. I hadn't spoken to him for a couple of years, obviously with COVID. And I only found out then, like, and he explains in his interview, that he left Disney after nearly 19 years and is now working in his local bike shop because he's just mad about bikes.
Yeah.
And he's always been mad about bikes, and he does triathlon. And he was like, I was doing 80 hours a week. I was, on a 2 hour commute every day, back 2 hours, 4 hours round trip for an 80-hour week, not seeing my family, not seeing his daughter or his wife, and he's just like, couldn't get in the training he wanted to do. So he reevaluated what could he do logistically and what would make him happy.
Mm.
And this, and I think sometimes what I love about that story as well, though, is sometimes where I see people stopping themselves going for that thing they really do want to do because they don't think it's grand enough or big enough or seismic enough. It's like, it doesn't have to be something huge. It could be something quite simple that you want to do. It's just
Yeah.
having the willingness to do it.
Yeah, totally. If it makes you happy.
Yeah,
Thing.
absolutely.
Like one of my sort of happiest memories as a coach, after a few years of coaching, there was a local Olympic distance race here, just in Carlingford, and I was fortunate to coach the race winner, which is great, fantastic. But also there was an athlete who came in maybe last five or so, and the smile on their face was just a wonderful sight to behold. They had basically in the previous 9 months learned to swim, give up cigarettes, give up a very unhealthy relationship. They'd been very, very brave. They'd taken on a lot of brave decisions, and crossing the finish line in the triathlon was just like the icing on the cake of how they turned their life around. And I was just overjoyed for them. So yes, the winner, yes, but this person who'd gone through such adversity and come through the other side, the better person for it. That's it's not all about the coaching the winners. It's helping people, and that's why I've set up on Facebook a tri community. I call it Park. It's the Primed and Ready Club, and it's just preparing people, and that's preparing people to take on whatever challenges that they choose to. That be, learning to swim, improving their nutrition. They've got a bad back. How can we help them? So we've got almost 1,500, mostly Irish based, but worldwide now, who are helping each other. So there's some very experienced people in there, very experienced coaches, and we just like helping each other. So that's like, again, goes back to the whole tri community, just being a very supportive place to be.
Absolutely, because I think it's, and you reminded me there in a sense of like the other side of you have your individual side in sense of you still participating for your own triathlon, but obviously being a coach, the people that you coach and the sort of community that you've obviously built, that obviously must have a massive importance to you in your life.
Well, legacy is not the right word or whatever, but if I can helping people, like it goes back to my previous career in computer programming. I couldn't explain to my mum what I was doing, what benefit to the world was a few, these few lines of code for a big American multinational. How am I helping? I just like, I feel like I have to help people. And again, now through the coaching and through the Park community, it's about helping people. People are suffering and they're looking for help, and it feels great. Like, people sometimes are afraid to ask for help. But when you ask someone, it makes them feel good. If they can help you, it makes the helper feel good to be able to help you. So people should always reach out and see what can be done for them. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. It's been fantastic to talk to you, Oliver. I really appreciate you taking the time. I have one more question for you, which is, what's important for your future?
As I said earlier in the chat, I'm heading over to the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii, in about 3 weeks' time. Head over, and my wife and 2 of my children. I've got 4 children, and the two older ones got the lottery ticket win to come over with the promise that if I ever qualify again, the younger 2 will accompany me. But because this is my sort of second trip to the big island, my priority is making sure they have a good time, making sure they see the dolphins, they see the turtles, they go to the volcanoes and things like that there. Yes, the race is important. I'll do my best, but making sure they have a good time is my priority for the next number of weeks anyway.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. No, and best of luck with that. And then
Thank you.
For the younger 2, then you'll just have to get straight back on it when you're
okay, I'll give it a few years.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Oliver. If you wanted to, again, you mentioned it there, but if you want to give another, just read out again the sort of where people can find you and the community you just mentioned. We will put it all in the notes as well, but if you want to call it out again of where people can either contact you or follow you.
Yeah, sure, James. My own coaching, triathlon coaching business is called Primed Coaching, but we have a large tri community called Park, PARC. So you go into Facebook and type in Park Tri Community, you'll find us there.
Brilliant stuff, and we'll make sure that's in the notes for everyone as well. Once again, thank you so much, Oliver. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, James. Been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, you can follow me at James Dean Coaching on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn or find out more about me on jamesdeancoaching.com.